Thanks again for tuning into the CS Podcast, once again presented by the NFL Draft Bible. Visit NFLDraftBible.com. As always, I am Chris Shanafelt, your show host, and I want to dive into the wide receivers of the 2016 NFL Draft Class, and to help me do that is none other than Turron Davenport from USA Today's The Eagles Wire, and he also does a great job covering the NFL Draft for Football Gameplan. You guys can give Turron a follow on Twitter at @TDavenport_NFL. And Turron, we appreciate you taking some time this afternoon. It's crazy to think that we're just 25 days away from the start of the 2016 NFL. Again, we're going to be focusing on this year's wide receivers class. And I wanted to start off by asking you, how does this year's wide receivers class compare to the last 2 years of receiver classes? Last year you had Amari Cooper, Kevin White, Devontae Parker, Nelson Aguilar, Rashad Perriman, and Philip Dorsett all go in the first round. The year prior, how could we forget Odell Beckham Jr., Sammy Watkins, Mike Evans, Brandon Cooks, and, of course, Kelvin Benjamin, all in the first round in 2014. In your opinion, how many wide receivers in this year's class are worth spending a first-round pick on?
I think there's probably going to be about 4 first-round picks in this year's class, but when you mention the guys from last year, there's 2 that you also have to mention, and they came in the third and the fifth round, and you're looking at Tyler Lockett that went to Seattle, as well as Stephon Diggs, so I got to spend some time with at Maryland's Pro Day. These are 2 guys that went later that had a tremendous impact as well. So I think that as far as the depth is concerned, there are some guys that could go later in this draft, but top end wise, it's not as stacked as 14 or 15.
And we'll start off with Laquon Treadwell, the Chicago native, seeing as we are out of Chicago. He actually grew up right down the street from me, believe it or not. Went to Crete-Monee High School. A guy that once the season ended, many people had ranked as the number 1 wide receiver. Since then, we've had all the All-Star games, the NFL Combine. Most of the pro days have already come and gone. And at the NFL Combine, Treadwell decided not to run his 40, but at the Ole Miss Pro Day, he did run. He ran a 4.63, which wasn't much of a surprise. I think that most of us kind of expected somewhere in that 4.6 range. Turron, where are you on Treadwell? Is he your number 1 guy? And, while we cross off speed, what are some of the other traits that he brings to the table that excites you and would make him a first-round pick?
Well, first and foremost, I'm not one who really supports changing the guy's status when there's no football played. Treadwell remains my top wide receiver. He's got 2 very good years of production, and he's a ball player. He's a guy that's very strong at the catch point. He's very strong when he catches the football. He's able to break tackles. Reminds me a lot, and I've said this all year, and I see some of these comparisons starting to come out, but he reminds me a lot of Michael Crabtree in that he's able to convert to a running back very quickly once he catches the football, and he'll get you yards after catch. When I look at Laquon Treadwell, I think of a guy on 3rd and 8, you throw that 5-yard crosser, and you let him break that tackle and get you a legitimate 10 to 15 yards. And he's someone you want to get the ball into his hands quickly. He may not be the explosive player that a Corey Coleman is or a Will Fuller, but he's a guy that will consistently give you between 70 and 80 catches, 1,000 to 1,200 yards, and give you 10 touchdowns. And I think that's all that you could want out of a receiver, especially a first-round guy. So I remain strong that Treadwell is my number 1 receiver. I don't support, like I said, this, 40 times this, that, and the third. When you see him on the football field, he's able to make plays. And I think that's what you want a receiver to do, catch the football and make plays.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And he also remains my number 1 wide receiver in this year's class as well. I would absolutely love, I think it would be a perfect fit for him, number 10, going to the New York Giants, playing opposite side of Odell Beckham Jr., kind of give him a running mate over there in the NFC East. Another guy, though, that you can make an argument, and the argument has been made by quite a few people on hashtag draft Twitter, and that is Corey Coleman out of Baylor. This past season's Bolitnikoff Award winner, which, of course, is given to the nation's top wide receiver. He also did not run his 40 at the Combine, though he sparked a 4.37 at his pro day. Also recorded a 40.5-inch vertical at the combine, which is eye-opening there as well. When you do turn on the tape for Corey Coleman, though, Turron, I mean, you do see the speed there instantly. Like you said, I mean, a very explosive wide receiver, and really all you have to do is kind of throw the ball up in the air his way, and there's a good chance that Corey Coleman will be coming down with it. And again, the way he's able to kind of create separation is really like an art, I would like to say. What is the upside for a guy like Corey Coleman?
Yeah, first and foremost, I'll say this. A lot of the guys that are just now starting to rank Coleman as the number one, they're a little bit late to the party. You know, my guy Brandon Howard has spoken about Corey Coleman for quite some time. He's been his number one receiver, and I love talking receivers with Brandon. We both played the position, and, you know, it's really cool to be able to bounce things off of each other. And he's been bullish about Corey Coleman as the number one receiver. As far as Coleman's ability, the thing that I really like about him is his start and stop ability. You look at just some of his big games, you know, he's able to stop on a dime and kick it right back into gear very quickly. He's a guy that, okay, he runs a bit of a limited route tree, but guess what happens on those routes that he does run? He dominates. So here's the thing. When you have an athlete, you could always get a guy to run routes that you want him to run. And truth be told, a lot of the routes in college football have to be altered to the particular team that they go to anyway. So I don't care who you are, you're always going to have to improve upon your route running and run your routes a bit differently because schemes are different. So that's something I would push aside. Corey Coleman, at his size, he attacks the football also, and that's something you see in the top three receivers in this draft class. They all attack the football, and that's what I like about each one of these guys. But when you look at Corey Coleman, you just have that straight line speed. He's a guy like a Will Fuller that you could just line up out wide, and you just tell him, hey, look, run by the guy that's defending you, and they could do it. And that's something I like about Corey Coleman. You would like to see him, like I said, you know, be a little bit more rounded as far as you know, the routes that he'll run. But that's something, like I said, could be improved upon. Another thing about Corey Coleman that I really like is just the ability to use him in a Randall Cobb type role, where he could carry the football out of the backfield. You could throw the ball to him out of the backfield as well. So he gives you multiple options. You get very creative and use a guy like Corey Coleman to really just destroy defense.
Yeah, you know what? I got to be honest. I never really connected the dots with a Corey Coleman and you know, being able to use him like a Randall Cobb type receiver. I mean, kind of a guy that, you know, get the ball in his hand and he's there to make plays. I mean, point blank. That's it right there. And you know, a receiver that I'm really surprised. I really like. I'm really surprised he's not getting more love from what I've been seeing. And I believe you were there at his pro day. Forgive me if my memory serves me correctly. I don't believe he participated in really any of the drills there at that pro day. But it's Leonte Carroo out of Rutgers, Turron. I know he raises red flags for an off the field issue, but on the field, I mean, just looking specifically on the field, I think Carroo could be pretty special. A 4.5 at the combine in the 40-yard dash. Again, a really nice deep threat. He's proven that at Rutgers over the years. Give us your take on Leonte Carroo as of right now, and what round would you feel comfortable taking him in?
I'd take Carroo in the third round for sure. When you look at Leonte Carroo, you think Anquan Bolden, you think Muhammad Sanu. Just a tough receiver. He's not going to, you know, give you a whole lot of yards after the catch, but he will break tackles. But he's someone you could play in the slot, you could play him outside, and he's just strong. Physicality is his game, and that's something I really like in receivers. You know, I like those guys that play the game with the attitude, that are able to use their body to create separation. At 6 feet, 203 or 210 pounds, somewhere along that line, he has a big body that he's able to use to get that separation on slants and also on digs, and he makes the defender have to kind of work through his body. But at the same time, this is another guy that's a playmaker, and that's what I like about Carroo. He understands the position. He really likes to block, and that's something we didn't mention with Treadwell. You know, Laquon Treadwell really loves to block also, and he takes that personally, and that's what you get with Carroo. I just like the physicality in Carroo's game. So third round, definitely a place that I would be comfortable taking him. I think that he is a very underrated player. He showed the ability to create separation and get open in one-on-ones at the Senior Bowl. And then in addition to that, he just had a workout yesterday, as a matter of fact. He had his private workout. I talked to him at Rutgers. He had rolled his ankle, and that's something that was reoccurring. It happened in the Senior Bowl, it happened in Combine, and it was still something he was trying to get over at the Rutgers Pro Day. But he did perform yesterday, and from what I understand, he performed well. I'm waiting to hear back from him just to get some of his feedback personally, but he's a guy that there were teams there to look at. So Carroo is definitely someone that I think will come in and be an impact player as well. And that's the thing with this wide receiver class. There are a lot of guys that you could look at that, hey, you know what, they'll go to the league and they'll do something. You just don't have that Odell Beckham. You don't have that Amari Cooper, but there's a good amount of guys spread throughout.
Yeah, I mean, you could get a lot of talent there, third, fourth, fifth round, and so on and so on. And, again, I think Leonte Carroo could be one of those guys, as you said, maybe third round. I would absolutely love to see him there in New England with the Patriots. I think he'd be a perfect fit right there. Again, he's Turron Davenport, does phenomenal work for the Eagles Wire and FootballGamePlan.com. Give him a follow on Twitter at @TDavenport_NFL. He's joining me here on the CS Podcast presented by the NUC NFL Draft Bible, breaking down this 2016 wide receivers class. And Turron, I see a lot of people have been inserting Notre Dame wide receiver Will Fuller into that first-round mix. He ran the fastest 40 at the Combine, a 4.32, which is impressive. But I'll be honest, I'm not sure if that's a guy that I want my team going after in the first round. I think that it would be a bit of a reach. He is a little bit on the smaller side at the Combine. He weighed in at 186, and just this past Thursday, while he looked good in positional drills at his pro day, he dropped 4 pounds and weighed in 182. Now, of course, very productive there at Notre Dame. Had a monster junior season. I don't know if you see the same thing, but when I turn on the tape, I mean, I just don't see a first-round talent. I got to say, I see inconsistent hands, quite a few body catches. Is Fuller a first-round talent in your eyes, Turron? And would a team be reaching for him if he's off the board within the first 31 picks this year?
Yeah, that's a tough question, because I will tell you my favorite receivers in this class are Will Fuller and Josh Doctson. Right. Will Fuller is a guy I really like just because of what he could do to defenses. And I think that's what's going to put him in the first-round conversation. And I'll give you a comp for Will Fuller that no one's making, and I see it. And it's not Deshaun Jackson. It's actually Terry Glenn. Right. You look at Terry Glenn coming out of Ohio State back in, I believe it was 96, because 96. It was around that time. 96, because he was with the Patriots in their Super Bowl appearance. But anyhow, you look at a guy like a Terry Glenn and Will Fuller. These are similar guys because they're both very lean. They're very fast. They run the post route very well. They body catch, which is something that you did mention. And in talking to Will Fuller at the Combine, I really wanted to stress the importance of running through the catch. And when you don't run through the catch, that speed that you have, it slows you down and it becomes irrelevant. And if he could work on being more comfortable catching the football, he could be all the more deadly. That being said, when you have an explosive player like that, you just line him up and you let him loose. You let him run those 9 routes, and it's going to make the safety start to cheat back more, and that will open things up underneath. So he's a guy that may not put up, a whole lot of catches, but he'll be a high average per catch guy. But more importantly, he'll affect games in ways that don't show up in the stat sheet. And I think that's why teams are going to look at Will Fuller in the first round. And, looking at it from that perspective, I think he is worth a first-round pick. The hands thing you could always work on. And like I said, it just matters becoming more comfortable catching the football.
Okay, and you know what? Terry Glenn, I got to tell you, I haven't heard that name in quite some time. Of course, the former New England Patriot, the former Dallas Cowboys wide receiver. I love it. I love the comparison, my friend. I'm definitely going to have to go back and watch some Terry Glenn highlights and try and, again, connect the dots between him and Will Fuller. Really like it, though. Speaking of guys that aren't very big, Turron, here's a guy that you were able to see live at the Shrine Game, at the Senior Bowl, and while he isn't generating the same same amount of buzz that guys are, like the Will Fullers, Treadwells, and Corey Colemans. He has a nice shot at hearing his name called at some point in the mid to late rounds, and that's Tajae Sharpe out of UMass. You turn on the film, and it's hard not to fall in love with what he's able to do, whether it's his acceleration, how quick he's able to come off the line of scrimmage, his route running, and, of course, the ability to play both inside and out. But he does have small hands, measured in at 8 3/8-inch hands. Turron, you already mentioned it, my friend. You played the game. You played the game at the college level. You played wide receiver. As somebody who played at the college level, I don't even think you have to play at the college level to really touch on this. But in your opinion, how much does hand size have on a wide receiver, and does the measurement scare you when talking about Tajae Sharpe? I mean, when seeing this, should we just throw away the tape and everything that we've seen from Tajae Sharpe over the last 4 years?
Well, here's the deal, man. He's a football player. He's not a massage artist or a massage therapist. So, me personally, the hands thing, I throw that out the window. It's not like all of a sudden he has to learn how to catch with smaller hands. The guy's done it all his life. And if you watch his film, he has over 100 catches, right? So he's very well-versed in catching the football, and a number of them were one-handed catches. So I throw that right out the window. Tajae Sharpe, 6'3", 190 pounds. Somewhere around there. I think that his main thing that he needed to do was show that he has toughness and he's not afraid to go across the middle. And he actually did that. And I like the way that he could run through contact. He's not afraid of contact. And he's a guy that you could work him in the power slot position, you put him outside. I don't have any hesitation to take Tajae Sharpe at any, 5th, 6th round. I think that's an ideal spot for him. And he's a guy that you could take and you could groom him. You bring him along, and, I think he needs to be more aggressive as a player. But once you could get that part of his game in line, I think you have a really good football player.
And we're in total agreement in that, again, a guy that was able to impress at the Shrine game, that got the look at the Senior Bowl, of course, was there at the NFL Combine. And, again, total agreement there. Sometimes it does seem like, people kind of just discount everything he did at UMass over the years once they found out he had small hands. And like you said, it's not like they just shrank once his, senior year was completed. He's had these hands, over the last 4 years. And, as you said, had a 100 reception season. So, certainly a big play receiver there in Tajae Sharpe out of UMass. And last but certainly not least, Turron, I assume that you've heard of the German wide receiver, put up some gaudy numbers at the Florida Atlantic Pro Day the other day. His name is Moritz Boehringer, 22 years old, from the German Football League. This past season, he was the GFL Rookie of the Year, reeled in 70 passes for over 1,400 yards, 16 touchdowns. Certainly some eye-opening numbers, and he continued to put up eye-opening numbers at the FAU Pro Day. He measured in 6'4", 225 pounds, and really blew it up. Ran a 4.43 40-yard dash, 39-inch vertical, a 10-foot, 11-inch broad jump, and 17 reps of 225 pounds on the bench. Over the last 24 hours, I've seen comparisons to guys like Jeff Janis, as well as Julio Jones and Calvin Johnson. Though I will say it's pretty cool to see a guy that, nobody knows about one day, and then the next day he's the talk of the league. Sounds like he already has some scheduled visits and workouts. Could that Monster Pro Day get a team to take a chance on him somewhere in the 6th, 7th round of this year's draft?
I think if it's a team that has some extra picks, I could definitely see that happening. The thing is, I think we need to calm down on the Julio Jones and Calvin Johnson conversation. I mean, these are the premier receivers, and obviously Calvin Johnson has moved on, but when you look at Julio Jones, that's a different level. Now, a comp that I could see being made, and this is just based off of, measurables and things like that, I think Adoro Green Beckham is a guy that I could compare him to. But see, here's the thing: it's tough to really truly make a comp because I haven't seen this guy play. One thing that you cannot coach is size and speed, and he obviously has that. So I think that's something that will take teams, make teams actually have an interest in him. He's a guy that you could probably bring in another developmental guy that you could get him acclimated, and he's only played football 3 years, so there's a lot of upside with him. So I think that will be an interesting guy when it comes to the last day of the draft. And he could end up being picked. If not, he'll be a high priority undrafted free agent. Make no mistake, he'll be in the camp, and he'll just have to go ahead and do his thing. And I'm looking forward to watching this guy go ahead and progress in training camp wherever he should go.
Yeah, we'll have to keep out, see if he could, turn into a Julio Jones or Calvin Johnson type receiver. Who knows? But again, very impressive numbers for him at the FAU Pro Day. Again, that's German football wide receiver Moritz Boehringer. And Turron, that's all I have for you this afternoon. I really do appreciate you taking some time to kind of break down this 2016 wide receiver class. Hopefully we could have you on again before the 2016 NFL draft. But before we let you go, please tell our listeners where they could check out your work at.
Yeah, definitely. And, before I do that, I just want to go ahead and give my man Josh Doctson some love. And not my man, but a prospect that I really like, because he's a guy to watch out for, too. Attacks the football better than any receiver in this draft class. So watch out for Doctson, TCU. Anyhow, yeah, you can find me on Twitter at @TDavenport_NFL, footballgameplan.com, theeagleswire.usatoday.com. We go from draft to Eagles specific. It's always good talking shop with you, man. We got to chop it up at the combine, and it was good seeing you there. And I'll see you in Chicago the day before the draft, and we'll have a good time then. Anytime you want me on, just reach out to me, man. It's always a pleasure talking shop with you.